Yes, sir.
All right. Brazos County Commissioners will meet in a workshop session September the 1st, 1:30 in the County Administration Building, 200 South Texas Avenue, Suite 106. First item is call to order, and the second is presentation and discussion of the Brazos Valley Cognet by Bo Monsiváis, Information Technology Director, and or Michael Park, the Executive Director. Looks like Michael's up. Come on up.
Judge. Howdy. Thank y'all for having us here today. The guy who actually built it is sitting in the audience today. I'm just the talking head. So
Hey,
we'll
you're
go
a
through a
good
few
one.
things.
You're a good one.
Well, thank you. Some of this you'll know, and I'll skip through the ones that are obvious, but for the audience and who we are, what we are, it may be helpful. Today we're going to talk about what we are, some regional demographics, the needs. We're going to show you some maps on the screen and what we were able to do with that. For benefit of just everybody has a common understanding of where we are located. The Brazos Valley Council of Governments is 7 counties, and we've been that way for 54 years. We do other things besides this. We do Section 8 housing, we do workforce development, the Area Agency on Aging, about 70 different contracts that we are liable for and do work for at the state and the federal level. So I want to highlight the bottom bullet on the screen right there, because that's really what started this whole endeavor. I was visiting with a gentleman from AT&T recently, and I said, you're the reason why we're here. Because back in 2008, prices went up, and our board of directors said, you need to do something about that. And we said, we don't do that. And then it was like, that's not good enough. Let's try to figure out how we can crack this nut. And that's really when the initial genesis of the idea that we could actually do something for our region. We found a number of ways to do it. We applied for this grant, we applied for that grant. They chose not to fund us. So we then came across healthcare, and there was funding for healthcare if you had the buy-in of rural nonprofit healthcare providers. So we put together a consortium, it includes St. Joe's and Health Point and others, and I'm proud to say today that network is functioning and has been functioning for some time. We have all of their facilities tied together on this high-speed network. So our purpose is to bridge this divide. Part of what we do as well in the Council of Governments is economic development. In fact, that's what we started as, was an economic development district. And being such, you have to create jobs. That's you're charged with trying to create jobs for your community. So looking at this network, we realized that we don't want to be the one that takes internet to the home. We would rather be out there and provide the connection back to internet for other providers to do that, for other providers to create a market and be able to do the sales to every home, hire people to do it, hire installers, hire folks to take that role and run with it. If you look at the households, this is what the graphic I put up here. There's 81,000 households in Brazos County alone. And so when you start looking at it, these are a lot of apartments. When we say household, it includes apartments as well. We have lots of units where people live. That each one of those could be a connection. So we also have to recognize the fact that where we live, we're between, I heard recently, one of the biggest markets in the whole United States, between Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston. And we're right in the middle of that. So the chances are that those 81,000 households are going to stay the same. No, they're going to increase. We have a growth boom going on that we haven't seen in many years. So we look at this thing and we recognize that our first priority was healthcare, telemedicine. But then, is that it? No, this program allows for the excess capacity to be used for a number of different things. For, as I put up there, remote learning, for entrepreneurship in the rural markets. People now, after COVID, want to work from home. To do that, they have to be connected. So a lot of things have come about just as of recent that actually augment our reasons for being. This is, to get it on the one slide, we had to kind of scrunch up this map a little bit. Excuse me. But basically, we're all the way from Buffalo down to Brenham. As far east as Caldwell, over to Madisonville. And this is what we call our backbone. This is a network that is fully functional, operating today. In fact, it's been in full operation now for about 2 years. And so we're very proud of this, and we're making connections as much as we can all along the way here to bring it out. Now, specifically in Brazos County, here's our network through Brazos County. You can see a couple of, I don't have a zoom function, or I would zoom in, but there's a couple of cul-de-sacs off of that main highway, if you will, that reach into very specific healthcare facilities. So that's what we see, and you can't see it, but we were actually all the way around St. Joe's, where their main hospital is located. We are on all periphery of their facilities there, in an effort to be ready for future development of that area as a medical location, if you will, campus. And so this is what would, if we were able to partner with the county to see what could be done for the rest of the county, this is where we would hang the ornaments. It would have to originate off of this green line somewhere. So if you imagine a web or spokes going out from all directions somewhere along this line, we could get to the rural portions of Brazos County that way. As we started trying to put together, ideas for this, trying to brainstorm, how would you do this? Well, we looked at, okay, there's county facilities all over the area. If we were to look at trying to connect to those county facilities, trash collection sites, even rural fire departments, that would allow that backbone to be stretched out across the county and would provide points of access for local providers to be able to connect in those spots and then be able to reach more people from those spots. Right now, the reason why there's no broadband in the rural areas is the return on investment. If you were to say, well, just build it, well, it takes money to just build it. And if you're stretching out to rural areas and the population density isn't enough to support that fund of that run, actually, it's just not worth it. The private sector would already be in the rural areas if it was profitable, and it's just not. We were able to do that to prime the pump because of a different mindset. We needed telemedicine, we needed rural health care, and that's why we built this network. The offshoot of it now is the fact there's a network out there, and private providers don't have to front the cost of going from Bryan College Station, where we have a lot of internet, all the way out there. We've already done that. All they have to do is connect to it. And the same is true for rural Brazos County. It would already be there if it was. And we have a lot, don't get me wrong. There is quite a bit, way more in our world than there is in rural Madison County. We do have more options here, but it's not always consistent, and there's options. If you have 5 megs down and 1 meg up, can you really have a whole household running on that? My household, it wouldn't work. And I have plenty of internet here. This is another option. It's something that Bo looked up, and I think we worked with your consultants on some of this data. But we looked at where there was a collection site and what it would take maybe to get to that site, and then thereby extend the opportunity for fiber connections out to the rural portions of the county. I'm not the expert on rural Development Opportunity Fund. Did I get that right, Bo? Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. They produced a couple of maps to show where there is not very good internet. So the blue areas are, it's dicey if there's anything at all. The next area is actually, the map makers feel like the area in green now can get 50 down and 5 megs up. I will say we get calls all the time from people in that green area that don't have that. So, and there are issues with mapping nationwide. This is not the forum for that discussion, but anyway, that's what these things are claiming now. The lighter shade of green is where people can get 100 megs down and 10 megs up, or at least according to the map makers, that's what they're saying. You can still see the portions of Brazos County that don't have those abilities, those speeds. And so as you consider expanding the network or funding the construction of fiber lines to your outlying facilities, perhaps some of this data will weigh into your decisions. Again, what we have and what we can provide is dark fiber leases, direct internet access, transport services. We can create private networks between these facilities that nobody gets on except the person that wants that network. And then you can read the bulletins there. I don't like people that read slides, but we can offer a lot of opportunities there. And we're interested in the benefit to the region, the county. We are not a for-profit deal. We have to make money to pay the bills, obviously, but we're in it to create jobs. We're in it to provide quality of life. We're in it to allow folks to, 2 a.m, the mom who's got a baby crying needs that doctor on her computer that she can talk to and get some information. All of that is the world in which we live today. And so that's what we're able to do. Again, some of this is, we're in the region, and we're talking all the time to other counties and other facilities. Will we provide connections to a private business? Sure, but it has to be right on our line. We don't have the money to build to somebody. That's our challenge. If you want to connect, you have to get to us. And there's a lot of times where we'll run right through a community and we have a connection point right in front of the Napa store. I'm just picking one out. That it'd be nothing at all to get them connected. Those are the kind of things that's real easy, but those are not everywhere. And then it only benefits that one. So we're way more interested in working with private sector folks that do this for a living and let them connect everybody else. So we're not only the owners, but we're the users of the network too. These are all some of the departments within our council of government that actually are on this network. You'll notice Regional 911. We carry emergency traffic throughout the entire network. It is woven into the regional 911 system. Radio interoperability. When an officer keys a mic in one part of our region, chances are it's going to run through our network to get somewhere else. And so this is a very vital network. If nobody else ever got on it, we've still accomplished our goal. We've connected all the healthcare. We're leveraging it for public safety and a whole host of other things. But we don't think it has to stop there. We think that if we can brainstorm some solutions, we're here ready to engage in that regard in any way that the court feels like it's appropriate to do so. The Council of Governments is just that. We are here for you, government. And so if you need us, we're here. So I'll end with that. Here's my contact information, and happy to take any questions.
Michael, could you go back to the slide that says services that Cognet can provide? That one.
Oh, right there. Yes, sir.
I apologize. I'm not familiar with the terminology dark fiber leases. Could you explain that?
Sure. So within any fiber bundle, I should have brought the actual, I've got a piece of the cable so you could actually get a picture of what it looks like. But we're only using a fraction of the total number of fibers in that sheath or in that cable, if you will. We can, and it's an industry practice, to lease certain fibers for other companies to connect their own devices to. And so they're simply just using us as a highway. They provide their own on and off ramps. We just act as the highway.
Now, are those providers to the public and businesses, or that's something else like a?
No, it could be for any use. The most of the ones we have right now, we've actually doing that for some of private providers, and they use it to connect their network together. In other words, they don't have to build this whole thing because we already have it built. They just want to lease some fiber to avoid their cost of having to construct their own.
So down to your last point there, what does it look like? What does it feel like your interface with a local provider? Do they connect to your network and then pay you a fee every month? Is it like a water bill? Do you measure their usage?
No. I said a long time ago, we're not going to put limits on people. We're not going to cap any speeds. But where we do have different funding mechanisms though. And that is, for example, if someone wants to work in Caldwell, the distance from here to Caldwell is different than the distance from here to Brenham or here to Buffalo. Buffalo's prices are going to be a little different than Caldwell's prices because of the level of effort to get to those far away places are different. So we have different levels of monthly fees for that. And so we are price competitive. We're just like anybody else. Well, we would prefer to have this be helpful for everybody. But there are choices out there in some cities, so it's just a way for them to look at us and say we're another option for them. But we work through Brazos 2020, which is a local nonprofit, and they work directly with businesses. Council of Governments through Cognet, and I know this is they're very closely aligned, but Cognet is the one that does business with governments. And so that's how we're able to operate. And 2020 has a license and irrevocable right of use, IRU, to be able to do that for us, the COG.
Michael, when we first began these discussions, when we were talking about using ALPA money for this, we were given an estimating price of about $50,000 per mile for fiber. Am I accurate in my supposition that with supply chain issues and inflation that we've lost buying power now on that money?
Yes, we have. In fact, can we even get the fiber? That's somewhat of an issue. Or the equipment on both ends of it. Some of those equipment's backlogged 6 months or better. So it's not impossible to build now, but it is a little more challenging. It's not impossible. They're doing it all the time. You can go all over town now and see people building, so it is possible to get something.
Have you built anything recently or taken prices? Would you even have an estimate that you could allow us to consider?
I'd have to look to Bo on that, but we can get you that. We can start researching that. We work with a local company, Housley Communications, and they're the ones that built the entire network. And so we ride on the backbone of what their costs are, and that's through a cooperative purchase contract. That's not just going out and hire somebody. They went through a public procurement process to be able to do that for us.
Am I accurate that these private providers already have fiber optic service to a part of East Brazos County?
Some of them do. I mean, it's hit and miss.
What does that map look like overlaid with your map?
I have no idea. That's proprietary information for them.
They wouldn't share that with you.
I mean, if I went to TxDOT and asked for every permit that was in the right of way, I probably could find that out. Or many times you could just drive out there and read on the pole who owns it. But I don't have that map of all the private lines.
Honestly, Michael, we live in a third world country out in East County now. I mean, literally, the choices, if you don't have a direct line of sight to one of their towers, are satellite providers, and those are not good.
Yeah.
Extremely expensive and very, very poor quality. But my point to you is, we could justify this so many different ways. We could justify the healthcare portion of it, the schools, educators, work, pick one.
During COVID, we had lots of calls from students and professors saying, how can you get to me?
Yeah.
In fact, I remember one distinctly off of Jones Road, just near Easterwood Airport, middle of a grove of trees, who had to work from home, had to grade papers, had to host class via Zoom, and they called in desperation, what can we do? I said, I wish I could help you.
I got nothing.
Got nothing. So, it's going to be somebody who sees a vision for this to go forward. It's not a profit thing, or it'd already be done. It would already be out there. And we do not want to compete with that. That's why we want to use whatever resources we have to just shorten the distance between their tower and connecting to the internet. And we think that if we can get out in the rural markets, then the providers that are out there will make it reasonable for them to get connected. One of the things that we look at is every foot of fiber we put in the ground, and all of ours is buried. It costs you money from the day you put it in the ground. Because anybody that wants to put in a sprinkler system or wants to culvert somewhere along that road, call before you dig. and we pay money for someone to go out and put the little flags in the ground for us. And so it's that realization of the operational expenses, not just the build-out cost, but how is this going to be operated going forward? And through an economy of scale, we have one contract that covers all of our stuff, basically. But if our stuff increases, then that contract's probably going to increase as well for our responsibility to take care of that network.
Michael, I certainly would not speak on behalf of the court, but for me, if I knew the right answer and knew how much it cost, we could start moving forward. Every time we look at this thing, and Judge and I have had this discussion before, I don't think we know the right answer yet. Are you willing to give us the right answer?
I will be happy to do my best.
Okay.
But I will tell you that there are companies that I've been quoted that can do this in-house within their company for $5 a foot to bore. And then there's others that's $14 a foot. The people that did ours, and 330 miles, I think they only hit one other utility in those 330 miles. And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
They were also the ones that were able to navigate the permit process at TxDOT. So you get what you pay for. If I want the $5 a foot, then I might have to go do all the TxDOT work myself. I might have to go, and if they hit things along the way, now that's on them. If the contractor hits it, they got to take care of it. But we've not been, confident enough to get to a different provider because we've had such success with the one that we have now. But is that to say that we can't find another one? There's lots of good providers out there for construction services. That's what we're talking about. So happy to research that. In fact, what we really would be helpful if you had, for example, a couple of places you wanted to get to. That gives us a distance, and we can calculate routes. It's not a straight line. It goes down county roads. It goes down fence rows. It has to turn right, turn left a long way.
I would
and that
defer
adds to the cost.
Commissioner Precinct 4 for a location over there, but I will tell you this. In 2, we'd be talking about Edge, Curtin, and Wixon Valley.
And if you look at your map, the map you showed us previously, that you have Precinct 4 noted several times.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a bit of area in Precinct 4 that I'm very interested, because the for-profit organizations aren't interested. I'm begging them to please come.
Right. The other side of that coin is too, we could get out there, and they just don't want to do it at that time. Companies have business plans. They have phases that they want to do. We're there, and we'll partner with anybody who wants to partner with us. I say us, Brazos 2020 is who we're talking about.
Is the goal, is your recommendation that we can do fiber optic to each home and business, or is there a way we could do fiber optic to the county sites, if you will, and then do some sort of microwave or radio signal from there?
That's kind of how we looked at it. What we were able to do is, if we can get to the county sites with fiber, then you could lease space for a tower, someone to put up a tower. And I understand the difficulties or the issues with line of sight. But if you have more opportunities for line of sight, you have more opportunities to have a quality connection in that regard. And so that may be a consideration as well, is once we get to the county property, the county may want to look at a tower and then rent space for the electronics on that tower, to pay for some of the operational costs. Again, there's a whole lot of ways we can look at this.
Right, and honestly, we don't have one expert up here. We've got Trevor, but we need to start focusing on some solutions.
Like I said, if you could give us a few endpoints, we could start the conversation. We could go and look at the routes and see what that will cost, because it depends on which way we got to go as to how long that route is. Certainly a straight line would be awesome, but that's just not feasible. We have to go down roads, and that's going to add to the length of the overall route.
And so, really, the problem that I see with the fiber is that you can take that first mile, but that last mile is the one that's going to
Very
people's
expensive.
houses or going to businesses, and that's gonna cost you whatever it is per foot to get it there. So that's, even if we had the blue lines you had drawn on there,
Mhm.
if you were right on that line, it'd be an easy connect. But if you're half a mile off or somewhere, to get it to your house, you gotta run the thing, unless you're putting up towers and some other form of internet. And that's, when we started talking about this, that's kind of what I was seeing, is that, well, if we put money into more fiber out there in those areas, we hadn't been successful in getting all those people that lack internet service to their homes.
Yeah.
We may get
Agreed.
close, but then somebody's got to pay to get it that next
Connect.
mile or whatever, and so
Absolutely, yes.
that's what I've looked at when we started down. I thought, well, that may be a good idea to run it to all the locations, but that still doesn't solve the problem. That we really want is getting out there to the people that don't have internet service, today.
Absolutely.
Are very good. So
All very true. One of the things that we've learned, though, and take it for what it's worth, is it's hard to innovate when you don't have anything tangible to work with. If fiber is there, then you can come up with all sorts of what ifs. And I've seen that happen many, many times, where now that they have fiber, now we can brainstorm a different solution, or at least it's closer than we're going to have to build it. That still doesn't get it to everybody's house. I agree with that.
Build it and they will come.
In some facts, I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. But is it guaranteed? Absolutely not.
Well, this all began when we received our Recovery Plan Act money, and that was one of the provisions provided for within the Treasury's exclusions, and then what I want to do is I guess my concern is I don't want to have a whole lot of private entities coming in and us making deals, and we're picking winners or picking losers or whoever, giving exclusives as far as that goes. So my thought was building, taking funds we have available or that we can get, because we're going to talk a whole lot. We heard last week, a whole lot about Texas Broadband Development Office, which I think is behind the curve but catching up very rapidly, and there's going to be a lot of funding there. So I guess what I'm looking for, I think, is where do we start this working relationship, and what are the parameters that we put there, and then continue to develop that, because the funds from a public entity's perspective are going to be available, and a lot of it's accessible by grant, a lot of it's going to be direct, but what's the best use for Brazos County to use not only just the Recovery Plan Act money that we could devote to this, but what's the picture beyond that, and how do we come up with a comprehensive plan to do what needs to be done to where there is no digital divide in Brazos County. It's all a matter of what speed do you want and need, and here's where you plug in, and here's where you send a check.
You mentioned what's beyond, Commissioner Aldrich. That's where it's speculation, obviously, but one can sit there and put some reasonable thought to it. For example, the ISDs, they've got plans for new schools all over. If we overlaid those plans on top of a route that goes out to a rural fire department, volunteer fire department, Is it forward thinking? Is it coincidence? What is it? But the fact that we know that, we can start to prepare for it, so when that school comes in, they don't have to worry about fiber because it'll be right at their doorstep. I mean, that's a simplistic example, but
Sure.
In a growing county, what we see now is not what we're going to see tomorrow. There's going to be a lot more growth and a lot more subdivisions that need access to that, where it makes sense to go house to house.
It's all about spotting and addressing your limiting factors.
Mhm. You know, and for us, I have an analogy, be that as it may, that we're an arms dealer and we'll sell guns to everybody. Anybody that wants to come, connect, and make a market, we will do that. Better analogy is we have a bakery on Capitol Hill. I don't care if a Republican or Democrat comes in so long as they buy a donut. We're there for everyone. There's no perceived
Right.
winners and losers in that regard,
Right.
because I want everybody to be connected. I want every provider to do it so they can make money, so they can hire more people.
Well, I don't think it's the desire of the Commissioner's Court or orientation in the county for us to get into the broadband business. But we have funds that are available where we can, I mean, I know the city of Bryan talked about whether to make this. They actually had a city charter amendment that passed where this could be an enterprise for them, and they decided not out of it. I don't think we've ever really considered that, but the real question for me, and I think for everybody here, hopefully, is how do we take these assets that we have and best use them to make an impact to benefit the citizens of Brazos County, whose money this is.
If I could offer maybe a different perspective that might help that. It's what I said when we first started this. We realized it's not profitable to go build this what we built, just if you're going to hook up a few people along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing it for healthcare and you're doing it to try to provide better healthcare for your citizens of your region, a little bit different perspective there. You know, cities, counties all over, they build industrial parks, business parks. When they build that, do they know every business that's going to go in there? I would dare say not. It's built on speculation that it will be fertile ground to develop business in the future. But the money is spent now to make that happen. As we grow, if this network is looked at also not only to connect county facilities, but also to provide that virtual business park, I'm using an analogy, that you're doing it from an economic development perspective. Because you don't know who's going to connect at the end. But yet, at the same time, you have that asset there, and companies that are coming here consider property along this road, along that road, fiber's right there in front of them. You know, is there fiber at the existing business parks and free trade zones? I don't know, to be real honest. But what would that do to enhance business decisions if they had gigabit speeds at those parcels of land? So, yes, I desperately want to get it to every citizen, but there is another way to look at this, is to use funds for economic development.
Yes, I like that.
Michael, we've set aside, I believe it was $5 million of ARPA money for broadband in the county. How do we put that money to work? What is a fail-safe opportunity for us that we can use that money today?
Well, trying to think on my feet. Interlocal agreement with Cognet, with the Council of Governments, we could take that money and build locations you want to go to. Let me give you a little bit of, you wanted cost. If you can imagine from Calvert to Bremont, go up Highway 6 and cut over that way, or FM Road that goes the back way. We had that bidded out or priced out about $2 million back about 2 years ago. There was some congressionally directed funding for $1.5 million for that route. when the feds called and informed us of that, I said, that's fantastic. I love that. Oh my gosh, that's such a great thing. The problem is now it's $3 million project. Supply chain,
Right.
backlogs, inflation. I'm not going to start a project I can't finish.
Mm-hmm.
So we shot back a little request saying, can you, if you want us to do this, we'd love to do it, but we got to wait next year for another round of money. If that's even going to happen for us, we don't know. But to your point, how far will $5 million take you? That's the question there. It's about a 12-mile run from Calvert to Bremont, I believe.
14 miles
14,
Calvert to
there you
Bremont,
go.
bet.
I figured that's what you were doing. You're checking the math, I know. I get it. Yeah. We've had a lot of different bids over the years for mileage, but you know, we always try to plan for about $14 a mile, and that's overestimating. In all the times we've gone for grants and we've asked for funds, I never want to be in the position to go back and ask for more money.
Right.
You know, if agreements could be reached, it could be, you know, reimbursement costs up to, not to exceed XXX. Again, we'll negotiate in which way you guys think it's feasible.
Michael, if county were to make a decision tomorrow that 30 days from now we wanted to go to work on this thing, how long would it take for citizens to get broadband service? Are we looking at 2 years?
At least.
Yeah.
At least. I'll tell you how we started this. We put in a grant to build it in 2015. Single application. We thought we'd be done in 1 year. How naive were we?
Yeah.
It took 3 years, and then we had a hurricane in the middle and had to ask for a 4th year extension because all the materials went to the Texas Gulf Coast to rebuild all the stuff down in Houston. So we lost a year. So it took us 4 years to get what we got. It took almost a whole year just to cross one railroad track south of Somerville, just for the permit. We had fiber on both sides. We needed to go about 75 feet. Took a year to get that permit. Who knew? Who knew? When they were building the bridge on 105 across the Brazos, the new one, same thing. We were on both sides of it, ready to go, until they gave us the clearance to do so. So that's what we don't know when we start building. Now, certainly we don't have Brazos River, and we know where the railroads are here, and we already crossed the railroads here. That's the other thing to keep in mind, that because we already crossed the railroads, we can route traffic through that crossing and not have to ask for another railroad crossing. Depends on exactly where. If you get far south, you might have to cross it to get over to Milken. So that's why I say it'll be a couple of years.
2 years.
Yeah. What we try to do is the easy first. If there's a route that's straight line, you can get that done in a couple weeks. Then it's a matter of which provider wants to come alongside you and start offering service.
Well, and again, even if all the material was out there and we had the $5 million and we handed it over and y'all could start tomorrow and you could have it done in a year or two, whatever is along that route could get connected up. But if you're not real close to that line, it's still another chunk of money for somebody. Everybody that wants to get connected to it,
Yes.
it's still going to cost them money.
We had one community that was very much the case, but a business saw the future, and they footed the bill for $50,000 to run the length of the town. That was their choice, and they could afford it. But all the people in between there now have opportunity, and that's what they felt that was prudent for them to do. They wanted to invest in their community. That hasn't happened. That's only happened one time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I
That's only happened
doubt
one
that
time.
it happened real often, but
Get us in touch with that company.
Yeah, exactly. And part of the cost too, I will mention this, is that we made the choice, and I want to say too that we worked with Texas A&M to design this system. It's not something we just sat in the back room and came up with. They helped us immensely getting it all put together and creating the design. But it was decided early on to go underground. for long-term maintenance, because it's cheaper to maintain underground than aerial. Every pole you attach to, you gotta pay rent. We just didn't want that. But it is much cheaper, less expensive to go aerial. And in some cases, for routes that are coming off of the trunk line, maybe it makes sense to go aerial, because everything we quote is underground. So there's opportunities. We've never done that. Well, I take that back. We crossed the Brazos on 21 aerial. You can go down that, you can see the pole, and then it goes back down the ground. But I can't think of another location. There may be one somewhere, but I just can't think of it. We've never priced it for aerial. We could start offering both. You know, say if you want to connect and there's a line down that way, but then we have to get with the power company and have to have agreements with them about that too. It's another level of bureaucracy, but could it be done? Sure, it's done every day. But again, just the final, if you can show us points on map that you'd like us to chew the fat on, we'd love to do that and come back with you about it.
We can start with precinct 4.
Yeah.
Wherever you tell us, put a pin on a
I'm
map.
just precinct 4.
If there's a community center, if there's
Yes.
fire station
There
that we can
will
get
be.
to, that, at the very minimum, you can have an endpoint, people can walk in and get online and do their homework.
Well, we're,
Sounds good.
from a perspective of building things and then having private entities wanting to extend off that network, that they get to the point to where they see a benefit of making that investment in what the judge is referring to, the last mile, for their providers. We're not really dealing with any of the really large providers that we're familiar with here in Brazos County. We're talking about smaller providers who specialize in rural internet service. And does it make sense for us to get input from them as to, when we're talking about these locations, that we get input from them that says, hey, if we got you to here, would you subscribe to? Where would be the areas that you would join on and say, hey, we do the last mile if y'all got us to here?
Right. That, I would love to have a cup of coffee with those folks, and we know them. I mean,
Right.
we can call them up and say, hey, what do you think? And not hold them to anything. But
Because my objective would be is to get
what's
them
reasonable.
to get
The
them on VV
conversation.
Cognet's network, because VV Cognet then is able to accrue the benefits of
we can pay the bills.
what they're out, and it helps.
Right, no doubt, no doubt. And it doesn't mean we don't work with big companies.
Right.
It just means heretofore, it's been the local folks that have been most interested.
Yeah. Well, we need to put the connection in the public-private partnership, and we need to, I mean, that was one thing I would say. We can say where we'd want to build, but I don't, and we can look at these areas, but I think the real input that's important is okay, who'd buy into our project if we did this?
Right.
Who would say, you get me to here and I'm on board?
We have a number of companies within the region that are, some are very aggressive, some are like, I've got enough to keep me busy, and everything in between. But here again, I think it's one of those, we need to have that conversation. So if we knew where we were going, then they would be able to look at their coverage areas and say, okay, I think I can get to this, and then they'll start putting the pencil to it. Just as talk, as conversation, to help add to the decision process. We'd be happy to have that conversation with those. And you're right, it is a
Well,
public-private
yeah.
partnership, all the
There's
way
going to be,
through.
well, I mean, everything with the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, with the Texas Broadband Development Office, with the excess of revenue that the state of Texas has, and we're in a really sweet spot relative to that. But the money's going to be there. It's just figuring out how do we access it and how do we get it here?
And just on the.
Because it's going somewhere. If it doesn't come
It
here,
will.
it's going somewhere.
We've had lots of conversations with the state broadband office as it's been newly formed, relatively speaking, within the last year. And trying to provide them some real-time real life stories that what it takes to get this done and how did we accomplish it and what it's going to take to keep it going. You know, without COVID, we wouldn't be talking rural broadband.
Right.
It would not be a conversation piece.
I think that's when the lights went on.
COVID made rural
Or off,
broadband, which
whichever
was
way
an
you wanna look
obscure
at it.
conversation,
Mm-hmm.
into the national limelight, top priority. And so what's happened is they've all said, okay, they've thrown money at it, throw money, get it done, get it done, get it done. And there's all kinds of programs and everybody, it's the new buzzword of the day. But I would submit that when you get it all built, how you gonna maintain it? How you gonna operate? It takes money to run it. It's not just plug in the wall and start shooting light between each other. It is a real expense, and nobody talks about that. I'm talking about it.
But in this
But-
age of sustainability, we're not talking about sustainability with broadband?
It needs to be, but I've shared that with the state office, because, you know, if there was ever a rich, fertile soil to plant some grants for operations, I'll be the first to volunteer in that regard.
You know, I served on the COG board, and that's public knowledge. But I have been so proud of the idea that this was your baby, your thinking 12 years ago. Even before that, I mean, you got it started 12 years ago. So I'm just very proud of what you've done and all the awards that you all have won, and it would be wonderful if we could partner. And I've been saying that for a while, but I'm going to say it again. It would be, because there are so many communities in Brazos County itself, notwithstanding the surrounding, that we could improve.
Think about your polling places that are out, that could be out in the county because you have fiber to them now.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one of those things that, oh, wow, we've got fiber, maybe that will work. You can innovate
I
all
think
kinds
the
of things.
possibilities is just endless. We just have to hone in on what it is we want to do.
Well, we stand ready to help in any way we can.
And thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Number 3 is discussion and additional broadband funding opportunities by Taylor and Associates. Mark.
Good afternoon, Judge, Commissioners. Give us just a second. Let's see if we can get up and going here. As I think everybody here knows, we've been procured by the county to assist them with your ARPA funding. So what are we doing here today talking to you about broadband? Reason we're here today, and I want to thank the COG, and I want to thank Bo and Michael both. I'm sure Bo got tired of me ringing his phone off the wall the past several months trying to clean information from them, and I appreciate them being here, giving their presentation. The reason we're here today is because y'all have expressed an interest in broadband as it relates to ARPA funds. We want to try to advance the ball a little bit farther, further your knowledge as far as broadband, what's available through the COG, other options you can look at to see where are the weak links, where do we need to pick up at, what can we possibly pick up with something else, and give us a little more information about ARPA as ARPA relates to the broadband program as well. We're going to give you some information on that as well. We're going to try to keep it short. We're going to try to keep it as informative as possible. And then we'll do the best we can to answer any questions y'all have when we get through. Once again, we are not in the broadband business, but we're going to do the best we can to share the information with you that we have available today. All right, we ready to roll here? All right, y'all bear with me. This is a new laptop to me. Over there. All right, thank you. you a little bit on, and it's been brought up earlier.
Trevor specializes in last mile connections.
And in case y'all didn't notice, it's greatly needed, and you're not gonna get anywhere without that last mile. That's awesome. Texas Broadband Development Office, BDO, y'all been hearing about that from 10, 15 years ago? It wasn't there 10, 15 years ago. That's recently stood up. Why did it get stood up? ARPA. They got ARPA funding. Specific amount of ARPA funding was set aside in the coronavirus, well, yeah, I can talk it easy. Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund. All right, the state legislature appropriated all of the funds through that for broadband purposes within the state of Texas. It's funded under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, just like the ARPA funds that y'all have. Therefore, they have to comply with the same rules and regulations for the ARPA funds that y'all have to comply with. What are we looking at dollar-wise? They're getting just a little over $500 million in the state of Texas through ARPA for our broadband services. Funds will be designated for last mile service. Application guidelines are going to be available the middle of this month. Applications themselves will be available next month. So that's something that, once again, I just wanted to make sure y'all were aware of. It is for in-mile service. This is available for governmental entities. It's available for private providers. It's available for COGS. It's available for partnerships as well to submit applications for these funds. And once again, we can't tell you a whole lot about the application criteria aside from the fact that the guidelines are proposed to be available within the next 2 weeks. Next thing through the Texas Broadband Development Office, Broadband Equality Access and Deployment Program, referred to as BEAD. This particular program provides funding to expand high-speed internet access. It's funded under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It's administered under the National Telecommunications Information Administration. Wish they'd start using some shorter words over here. All right, what's projected to come to the state of Texas? Between $2 and $3 billion. When are these funds going to be available? In 2024. And once again, these funds will be designated for broadband service throughout the state. Exactly what these applications are going to look like, we do not know at this point in time. It's the assumption through the Texas Broadband Development Office that these will be competitive applications. As far as exactly what the criteria is, we cannot tell you with this. We're assuming, of course, it's going to go back to unmet need that either has no broadband service or minimal broadband service. The next thing through the Texas Broadband Office is the Digital Equality Act, or Equity Act. Provides $2.75 billion for information technology services. There again, this is funded under the same IIJA. Texas allocation is yet unknown, and there again, these funds are going to be available in 2024. These funds are primarily going to be focused at educating people as it relates to broadband, and especially in the rural areas, educating them on the ability, the benefits of broadband, and how to access broadband and use broadband to their benefit. Just a little bit more about the Texas Broadband Development Office. There again, we've had many communications with them. Current mapping, I think was brought out as well as y'all are aware. How accurate is that mapping? We don't know. We know it has some fallacies in it. We know it has fallacies here in Brazos County. Texas Broadband Development Office is well aware of that. Therefore, they have procured someone to assist them with mapping of the existing broadband services throughout the state of Texas. That mapping will be available throughout the state January the 1st of next year. They are projecting additional funding beyond the programs that we just briefly discussed. Exactly when those will be coming out, what the dollar amount, what those are going to look like, we can't say at this point in time, but they definitely anticipate receiving additional funds once again for our broadband service. All right. Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, referred to as RDOF. We visited with y'all about that previously. Once again, just to kind of back up and give y'all a little more information on that funding program. is to bring high-speed fixed broadband services to rural homes and small businesses. $24.4 billion have been made available for that program. It's awarded by block group using reverse auction. So they go out, they determine the block groups that need broadband service, then they put it up for auction to the providers that are out there. Whoever comes with the lowest bid to provide the service for that, to that specific geographic area, those are the ones that they award those contracts to. Currently in Brazos County, there have been 5 providers that contracts have been awarded to. Most of the locations are expected and required to have its speeds of at least 100 megs down and 20 speeds up when they provide that service. And once they have issued the public notice